A lot of what Jak II is what we wanted to do with Jak I, but just ran out of time. We had a lot of time working on new technology. We created an engine that was extremely competitive. I know Ratchet & Clank is considered one of the best games of last year, and that shared our engine, so Ratchet & Clank was using same technology. We've built upon that again. We've done another 2 years of technology work. This is kind of our 2.0 engine. But we weren't fighting just to get stuff up on screen, which we were with the first games. So we had a lot of things that we had wanted to do that we just simply ran out of time. So the maturity was not one of those things. The second thing we did is we looked at the market 2 years after Jak and said, okay, what's happened? And things had changed greatly since Crash days. When Crash came out, well, first of all, there hadn't been a GTA 3. Certainly there had been violent video games, but they were almost more slapstick arcade games like, what was it called, Slasher or whatever it was, more than something serious. And certainly none of them were that much fun that they really drove something home. Something like Mortal Kombat was violent and it was a huge success, but it wasn't that much different than Street Fighter. Then the violence seemed like anything more than kitsch, right? Street Fighter was actually a much better fighting game, so people just kind of said, oh, the gore's kind of kitsch. So it didn't set off what Grand Theft Auto set off. And I'm about the oldest person that could have a lifetime devoted to playing games. I don't remember a time before games, really. We're still playing games, 33-year-olds, 25-year-olds. And somebody very bright said at Rockstar, there's this huge market out there. They've got more disposable income than 14-year-olds. They buy their own games. Let's supply them with games. And as soon as they opened Pandora's box and said, here's fare for you that those people wanted, not necessarily violence, but something a little bit more mature. Play a criminal, things like that. Something that just had a little bit more edge than the friendly fare like Mario and Sonic and stuff like that. And as soon as Pandora's box were open, the 16-year-olds and the 14-year-olds were saying, I want to be like the older guys. I want to play their stuff. Common, right? You want to be like somebody older than you. And certainly Grand Theft Auto couldn't be as successful as it was without 14 and 12-year-olds playing it. At the beginning of the game, you go forward in time, you end up in the city, and you're immediately imprisoned. You're not allowed to use eco for various reasons. And while you're imprisoned, he kind of experiments on you with eco. Jak being, as we know, an oddity with eco, being able to channel it and things like that. It doesn't turn him into what they thought it was going to turn him into, which is an eco warrior, but rather he gets this kind of weird dark eco power, which sometimes he controls and sometimes it just happens. I take responsibility for keeping Jak silent. Jak was silent in the first game, and that was annoying to a lot of people. They said he has a cardboard personality. We want to see more out of our hero. We know a lot about Daxter, we know nothing about Jak. And we got huge email bombardments with why doesn't Jak talk, what's wrong with Jak. Making Jak talk was a response to that. I think the voice acting is pretty good in Jak II. Imagine voice acting 4 years ago. The more that there was in the game, the worse the game was, right? We did 25 days of voice recording already, and we were still voice recording. It's 25 days someone had to sit there coaching people. You're going to get bad lines. You have to go over and over and over it again. As the audience changed, we said, okay, we're going to do what we wanted to do with Crash and with Jak. When we started Crash, we wanted to do basically the things we did with Jak I, and we just couldn't do it on the PS1. We're just going to keep going, but at the same time, we're going to change a little. We're going to get a little bit more mature. We're going to have a plot that really matters. We're going to have characters that die. Jak's out for revenge. Imagine Sonic being out for revenge. It's subtle, but there are things that are very different about this game than any other character action game in the past. I think the reason fighting games have kind of stagnated is that there's still two players fighting one-on-one, and what more can you do? So we're trying to say, what else is out there? Well, Tony Hawk is a really good game. There's a lot of fun stuff in it. Let's give Jak a hoverboard, but do it in a character action way as opposed to a Tony Hawk way. We didn't quite reach it with Jak 1 because Jak didn't really have that personality to drive it. Crash for his time had the personality, and I honestly believe right now Crash is going on the energy created in the last generation is what's selling the games, not the current games. I don't think Crash is good for this generation. I really don't. The reason we left Crash is because Crash was last generation. We looked at Mario. Mario has no personality.
None at all. He's a plumber, but he doesn't really do anything plumber-like. His walk isn't plumber-like. His run isn't plumber-like. He just does what they gave him, a hammer or whatever else he does at the time, jumps and eats mushrooms, gets bigger, but there's no personality there. Sonic was a next-generation character, and the reason Sonic did so well personality in comparison to Mario is Sonic's fast. So he has an identifiable single feature, and everything Sonic does relates to his speed. The rings that he goes through, everything is speed-based. So it's a one-dimensional personality, but that was better than Mario. The thing that let Crash be exciting is Crash was a two-dimensional personality. He wasn't only dumb. He was dumb and sly, or heroic and witty. I mean, he was a couple things. He had a facial expression that would change. Sonic's always in this kind of fast grin. That's all he does. Crash actually had a little bit more than that, but he didn't have a voice. Now we have three-dimensional characters. Characters that have happiness, that goes to sadness, that goes to sarcasm, they go through the entire range of emotions. And Jak didn't quite get there. Daxter was there, but Daxter's not the hero. And I think that we needed a little bit more of a push that we didn't give it. And I think now, hopefully, Jak will have that kind of lasting appeal because he is finally a next generation character with a full range of emotions. You look at the big successful Disney movies, and you always have a pretty straight-laced, serious character that you can identify with as the hero, Aladdin. And then you have a wacky, sometimes funny, sometimes annoying, just off-the-wall sidekick. You look at that history, and you need somebody out there making it interesting, but if it's your character that you're playing that's making it interesting, sometimes it's not funny, and sometimes you say, that's not me. I wouldn't say that. It's too goofy, or that's stupid. Why is he saying that? I don't want to play that character. And that's what killed Gex, in my opinion. Gex pushed that line to the point where he would say stuff that was dumb, and when he said something dumb, you were playing a game instead of playing Gex. And we didn't want that. And that's, we're very careful with Jak. Jak doesn't push it too far in any direction. He tries to be Aladdin. You're out in the middle of nowhere in Jak 1, and also in the middle of nowhere in Jak 2 sometimes. And we need some speech. And we didn't want a second humanoid following Jak, because how are we going to get him through the world, and he's going to get in the way and all this other stuff. So he has to somehow be smaller, fit in a backpack, or any one of the thousands of other things that video games have done, right? Classic. Ratchet and Clank decided to put him on a backpack, and they made him a robot. He had to be smaller, so he wasn't a Ratchet, whatever Ratchet is. So he was a Clank, a robot. We decided that we wanted a little furry animal because a little furry animal had a little bit more kind of interesting animation reaction if he was sitting on his shoulder than the robot might, hence Daxter. It was supposed to be a single character. The original concept, we're going way back, was we wanted to satisfy everybody. So we needed a character that was an Aladdin that everyone could identify with. It was humanoid. We didn't want a little fuzzy animal that was Jak. We wanted a sidekick. Sidekick had to have the Mulan genie kind of attitude going on. The reason Mushu. The reason Mushu's small is so Mushu doesn't get in the way. The reason the genie's a phantom is the genie doesn't get in the way. We needed something that wasn't going to walk around behind you and be a pain in the ass. I guess Donkey to Shrek. And then we wanted actually another character that was a cute, lovable little thing for plush toys. And we never ended up getting that in. And I'm kind of happy because with Jak II, obviously, we've gone in a direction where that little fuzzy happy thing would have had to go away. But there were supposed to be 3 of them. And we thought of them as a team that was played through one player. So giving Daxter control to us was getting away from that pure vision, because you don't control the genie. The genie does unpredictable things. You kind of control Aladdin because you go through the adventure as Aladdin. You can't tell the genie when to do what he's doing, but as you're watching the movie, you're kind of you're kind of thinking along Aladdin's line. So giving Daxter playability was kind of an argument that we had continually, but it was demanded. We realized that, as you've just pointed out, everybody goes through the game pretty much once. So everybody plays it in a linear fashion. Having options is only useful if you're going to go back and play it more than once. So where there are options in this game is very different than Jak 1. In Jak 1, you had to solve the level in a specific way, but the world was open to you to do it in any order. To me, that's kind of useless because you're going to do it in one order. In this game, there are a lot of ways of solving different things. It's not directly linear. There are times where two characters can send you on two different missions, but you basically start a mission and finish a mission. Once you've started it, you saw I failed one of them and said, do you want to continue or not? If you decide not to, you can go do another mission, but you can't go do multiple missions like you did in Jak II. Jak II, you can find yourself halfway into a level on a mission, solve another mission, then continue with the first. We haven't left that openness because we want you continually to be driven by the plot and told what to do and why it matters. There's always a reason for everything you do. It drives the plot. We can't do this to get you to the Baron, which you want to do because the Baron did this to you, unless you do this for us. And once you've done that, it opens a new area which must be conquered for this reason, for that. Everything is very specifically directed. But once you get into the level, you can solve it with guns. You can never take out your gun. You can throw out the hoverboard and get through a hard patch by going through enemies with the hoverboard if you want. You can do it in a lot of different ways. And that's where the variety is. First of all, we do focus testing. Second of all, we look at the chat boards. So, anyone who's out there complaining on the chat board is actually doing us a lot of good. We get emails, directed emails, specific emails saying things. Anyone that's willing to write me an email, I figure I gotta read it. Jak I was too easy. That was one of the common complaints we got. A lot of people said on the chat boards, it was a great game, I really loved it, highly recommend, go out and rent it, because you can solve it in a day. And that's, to us, it's killer. So Jak II is definitely harder. Actually, the day before I left for here, I got the first email out of the blue from someone who says, I'm really disappointed Jak I was so hard, my kids can't play it. Never had another email. Not a single one in the other direction until that day. And that's what I responded.